Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Renfrew Center Foundation's webinar, The Body Image Toolkit, Building a Better Relationship with Your Body. My name is Hannah Podhorzer, and I am the Senior Marketing Coordinator at the Renfrew Center and a member of our Alumni Services team. And I will be your moderator for today's online presentation. I would now like to introduce you to today's presenter. Samantha DeCaro, Doctor of Psychology, is the Director of Clinical Outreach and Education at the Renfrew Center. She received her bachelor's degree in psychology at LaSalle University and her doctoral degree in clinical psychology at the California School of Professional Psychology in San Diego, California. She has been with Renfrew since 2012, completing her postdoctoral residency at the Renfrew Center, Philadelphia, Spring Lane, and then holding the position of primary therapist and most recently serving as assistant clinical director. As Renfrew's national spokesperson, Dr. DeCaro has been featured in the media as an eating disorder expert on various television shows, radio programs, podcasts, and online magazines. She's a frequent lecturer and serves as the alumni representative for the Renfrew Center of Philadelphia. Without further ado, I'm going to pass on the proverbial Zoom microphone to you, Sam.
Thank you so much, Hannah. And thank you to all of you who have registered and are here today to learn more about body image and how we can build a better relationship with our bodies. I'm Sam, I'm a psychologist, and I started as a therapist years ago, as Hannah said, almost 10 years ago at Spring Lane's residential site. And so I'm thrilled to be able to share some of the things that I've learned through the years on how we can address body image issues and what we can do about it. So I want to start out by saying I am someone who is coming into this presentation with privilege. I am a cisgender woman. I have thin privilege. I have educational privilege. I'm able-bodied. And so I want to be very transparent about that. And because of my privilege, there is also sort of a perceived expertise that you may or may not have based on my privilege. So I just want to be transparent about that. I, of course, have my own blind spots, and I think it's important that we're open about how our privileges may be interacting and impacting our work. So moving on, body image, I want to also say, is a very complex topic. And I was actually just talking to Hannah about how challenging it was to create a webinar that's only an hour long on body image, because body image is so complex and so layered. And I hope to share a lot of information with you today that's useful, but there is no possible way I would be able to get to everything. I tried to pick out the things that I thought would be most helpful to you, understanding body image, what it is and how it develops. I want to talk about the theory of embodiment, which is based on the work of Neva Pran, and I'll talk about what that means and the domains of that to help you understand all the complexities, all the factors at play that impact our body image. The onus is not only on you to fix your body image. Body image is impacted by a variety of factors. Many of those factors are not really in our control at all. And so I just want to take the pressure off and the shame off that body image work is, yes, some of it is internal, but there are macro factors and systems at play that impact the way we think and feel about our bodies. So I'll talk about that. There is no way I could do a body image presentation without talking about social media. So I will be talking about the ways in which social media might be impacting your body image, and we'll talk about ways to navigate that. I'll talk about thoughts, core beliefs, reappraisals, all of that cognitive work that we teach with the UT. We can talk about how core beliefs play a huge role in the way we interpret situations and how we can maybe discover our core beliefs and how we can work with them. Values work is also essential in body image work. body image work is so far beyond just the physical. It is about discovering your values. It is about living a life aligned with your values. It is about developing an authentic identity. And so body image work is much deeper than what you see in the mirror. Finally, I will talk about avoidance, and there are different types of avoidance. There are different types of avoidance strategies that might be fueling the anxiety that you have around your body and your body image. And we'll talk about ways that you can experiment with leaning into some of that anxiety, leaning into that fear in the spirit of building up that emotional tolerance and feeling more comfortable in your own skin. So what is body image? Body image is so much more than what you see in the mirror. And I think, unfortunately, in this society, there are many people who think, oh, if I don't like my body, then I just need to change it. And that is a huge misconception, because we cannot really heal our body image simply by manipulating the shape, size, or weight of our bodies. Body image is much deeper than that. It is about the relationship that you have with your body. It is about the beliefs, the thoughts, and the feelings and actions related to your physical appearance. It's the mental image you have in your head, what you believe that you look like, and what you believe that other people see when they look at you. So there's that mental image up there. It's also how you feel existing in your body. So it's not just about weight, shape, size. It can also be emotional. It can also be about height, skin color, hair. Body image is more than just shape, size, and weight. So we need to keep that in mind as well. And body image is impacted by so many factors. It can be impacted by your memories, even the memories you've developed before you even could speak. Those nonverbal memories can play a role in your body image. Culture, of course, society, oppression, trauma, physical changes, whether it's going through puberty or hormonal changes or menopause. Your mood can impact your body image. Aging, the postpartum period, disfigurement. There are all different events. Even your personality can impact the way that you feel existing in your body and the way that you perceive your body to be. So keep all that in mind. It's so much deeper than just looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, I don't like what I see. So take a moment to think about the timeline of your life. And, you think back maybe to early childhood. We talked about even before you could speak. And think about grade school, moving on as you age, puberty, all of that. What major events, memories, transitions, relationships, attachments affected the way that you think and feel about your body? So you might even want to think about, when did disordered eating start? If you have an eating disorder, if you're in eating disorder recovery, when did your eating disorder start? When did certain behaviors start? Body checking, experimenting with dieting or exercise. Think about when that was happening, and then ask yourself, what else was happening during that time? Was it a transition, a change, a stressor? What else was going on? These things are all connected. And the brain obviously is not going to remember everything, every single memory, but what it will hold on to are those highly emotional events. And when you're feeling overwhelmed emotionally, the mind takes a picture and stores it as something important. And so we need to be aware that our beliefs have been shaped by the events on this timeline. However, we're really not remembering everything. We're usually remembering the things that are so highly emotional and dysregulating to us. And those are the memories that can really impact the way we think and the thoughts that we have and the beliefs that we have. And we can latch onto those beliefs as if they're true. And so This is actually, by the way, from the body image workbook, if you're interested in looking more into that. I'll give you resources along the way as well, so that if you're curious about something, you can dig in more. So this might be just a good way to start, to just maybe even journal and write down these experiences in your life and how maybe they impact you in the present moment. I wanted to spend some time talking about the developmental theory of embodiment. And this is actually from a book by Dr. Neva Paran. And she is a professor in Ontario. She's a researcher, an activist, and a therapist. And the book is called Journeys of Embodiment at the Intersection of Body and Culture. So if you're interested more in learning about these three domains, please go get Dr. Paran's book and read it. This was very fascinating to me, and I wanted to share it with all of you, that basically there are three domains that can protect us from having a negative relationship with our body, and could maybe even prevent people from developing body image dissatisfaction, maybe even prevent people from going down the road of disordered eating and disordered behaviors in an attempt to manipulate their body. So if we know about these domains, not only can we think about how to prevent these things, especially for young folks whose brains are still developing, but also what do we have the power to change in our own life today to maybe harness some of these protective factors to protect us from having a negative relationship with our body. So let me first define for you what embodiment means. Embodiment is the lived experience of inhabiting our body, so just existing in our body as we engage and interact with the world around us. So embodiment is actually on a spectrum ranging from positive to negative. And so we all fall somewhere on that spectrum. And the question is, how do we know if we are on the end of the spectrum where we're inhabiting our bodies in a positive way, where we have a healthy, positive relationship with our body? So what are the factors that contribute to positive embodiment? I'm going to talk about these. And by the way, it's very important that I mention that there are other variables at play. Not everyone has the freedom and the access to these domains. And that's part of the problem. So it's that inequality, that not everyone has access to these things. And not only that, it's very important that, yes, that we have access, but also that we even feel encouraged to access these things. So access sometimes isn't even enough. We have to feel like we exist in a world where we're encouraged to pursue these things. So let's talk about the physical freedom domain, which can protect us from negative body image. So this is, you might be thinking to yourself, okay, physical, we must be talking about exercise here, right? We must be talking about movement. Yes, that's true. We are going to talk about that a little bit, but it's actually much more than just that. But let's start with movement. And in order to really have a positive relationship with your body, movement, and the movement that you have access to, the movement that you're encouraged to pursue, is really not going to be designed to fix your body in some way. So these are activities that, I'm going to give you an example: non-competitive type sports, dancing freely, freestyle dance in your living room, wearing, having access to comfortable clothing, and being able to hike in the wilderness. All of these things are examples of movement that can bring us pleasure, comfort, joy, safety, all of that, and help us feel more connected to our body. So when we're talking about physical activity and movement, we're talking about movement that doesn't have rigid rules or standards of how you should look when you're doing it, right? Standards or rules that feel harsh and controlling. So for example, there are certain activities where you feel like you have to wear a certain outfit, or you feel like you have to look a certain way to even participate in that activity, is probably not the type of movement that will bring you joy and help you feel like you have a choice in the matter and help you feel connected to your body. So yes, movement is part of it, but also let's talk about pleasure and comfort as it relates to your body. What is your relationship with desire? Because desire is part of your physical being. Do you feel safe and encouraged to pursue desire? Do you have a positive relationship with desire and pleasure? And to give you an example, do you feel connected to your appetite, to your cravings? Do you feel free to savor the food that you eat? Do you have access to the food that you enjoy and that you desire? All of this is actually part of body image because our desires are part of who we are physically. And many folks I've worked with who struggle with body image issues or even struggle with eating disorders really have a very complicated relationship with desire, whether it was from, you go back to the timeline, whether it's from religion or whether it's from different experiences in life. Desire and pleasure and comfort are all a part of building a better relationship with your body. So these are questions to ask yourself and start exploring. Bring them to therapy. You can journal about them. But also we want to think about, do we feel connected and attuned with our body's signals? So yes, I'm talking about, of course, signals like hunger or pain and things like that, of course, but also, do you engage in protective self-talk, even when you are faced with triggering messages and triggering images? Are you attuned to yourself physically, emotionally, spiritually? Are you aware of what your needs are? And are you able to address those needs, honor those needs, and meet those needs in the form of self-care? So this is all under the umbrella of the physical freedom domain. This is very complex. And again, I encourage all of you to go get Dr. Neva Peron's book if you're interested in learning more, because we can really do a deep dive in here. But let's talk a little bit about the mental freedom domain, which is part of body image. Do you feel do you have access? Are you encouraged to freely access and pursue meaningful activities that have nothing to do with appearance? Do stereotypes around femininity, masculinity, or any other social standard or norm, do those things interfere with your ability to safely and authentically exist in your body? Do you feel in control of your own body? Do you feel in control of your own voice? Do you feel freedom to use your voice and to be assertive when you want or need to be assertive? So one of the messages that we receive that interferes with our ability to exist in our body peacefully is the narrative that our bodies are objects to be gazed at, and that our bodies are constantly in need of repair, that they always must be fixed. And especially, when we think about gender and how binary gender can be, the messages that we receive that women should be a certain way and men should be a certain way. And that can really interfere with our body image if we don't feel free, if we don't feel encouraged to freely pursue whatever identity, whatever way we want to exist in our bodies. If we don't feel that freedom to do that, it's going to impact our body image. Research suggests, there was a research with the subjects identified as girls, but they were brought up in an environment where their voice was nurtured and they were encouraged to pursue their passions and step into their power. And these are subjects who reported having a more positive relationship with their body. So it's amazing how it's all connected. If you've ever been through eating disorder treatment, I'm sure your therapist or group therapist has probably told you part of the work is learning how to use your voice. Well, now you know why, because it is connected to your body image, being able to speak your mind and having that freedom to speak it freely. So do you feel free to opt out of or reject the idea that your body needs to be changed, repaired, or fixed in some way? Another question to maybe journal about. Okay, and finally, let's talk about the social power domain. The problem is not your body. The problem is the way society treats certain bodies. So do you have access to the resources you need in the body that you exist in today? Do you feel that in your body as it exists today that you're treated not only fairly and equally, but also you feel totally empowered to be you, authentically you? Or do you feel like your body, the health of your body, your gender, your age, your race, your ethnicity, your sexuality, do you feel like these things that are all part of your body are not accepted as you exist, as you engage in the world around you? That will affect your body image. So the responsibility is not just on you, it's on institutions on all different levels, school, work, policy, that we really need to be protected from prejudice, from discrimination, and that so that we can exist in our bodies peacefully in an empowered way, also regardless of whatever our social identities may be, gender, race, size, health, whatever it may be. So the onus is not just on you. Do you feel, finally, I must mention this last thing, which I think is so important. Do you feel that you are surrounded with people who accept you, who can connect with you, who validate you, regardless of your social identities, at school, at work, wherever you find yourself existing and engaging? Do you feel accepted, connected, and validated? And if you don't, can you change that in some way? Community is so important. We heal in connection. We're wired for connection. And so if we don't feel accepted, connected, and validated in the spaces we exist, we are not going to be able to feel safe in our bodies. So as you can see, body image issues are so complex and layered. And Neva Prawn also has some episodes, some podcasts she's done. You can look her up and look up her work. Very fascinating way to look at body image. So let's talk about social media, so important. Social media literacy has been shown to be effective in addressing shape and weight concerns. So I could do a whole presentation on social media literacy. Of course, we won't have time for that, but I will just do a quick rundown of maybe ways you can have a better relationship with social media. Because social media, we don't only exist in the physical world, we live in virtual worlds now too. And so we have to talk about this. And social media is not always a safe place when you're trying to improve your relationship with your body. So social media literacy is actually a set of tools that help you think more critically and analyze the relationship between media, audiences, information, and power, meaning you can think to yourself, why am I seeing what I'm seeing? Is someone trying to just sell me something? Is someone trying to make me feel bad so that I buy a product and I feel enough shame and guilt that I spend the money to in an attempt to change my body? So I've done a lot of research and looked up a lot of research on the studies of the impact of social media on not only body image, but disordered eating, anxiety, depression, all kinds of things. But what I'll share with you today is that there are links between the amount of time you spend on social media and body dissatisfaction, drive for thinness, disordered eating, and low self-esteem. So we really do need to zone in and hone in on social media if we want to have a conversation about improving your relationship with your body. One of the first steps in social media literacy is awareness. Can you spot the toxic messages in media that have to do with your body? Can you label and identify when you are seeing the thin ideal or when the thin ideal is pushed on you directly or indirectly? Can you spot advertisements that try to trick you into thinking that your body can change easily and flexibly and permanently? So these are just a quick list of very common toxic messages in the media that can be tricky to spot. Some are very obvious, but some are not so obvious. So if you are interested in improving your relationship with social media and you want to improve your ability to spot the messages that might be hurting you without you realizing it, email us. I'll send you this. This is a social media checklist. When I do social media literacy webinars, I give this out, but I can give it to all of you if you want it. Just email us at webinar@renfrewcenter.com and we'll get this to you. But this is a quick way, this is a mindfulness tool for you to take a look at some of your favorite accounts and see how they measure up in terms of, are they feeding in to those toxic messages? Are they more aligned with diet culture and fitness culture than they really are with your recovery? And how are you feeling when you're viewing their account? What are your urges? How is it impacting you emotionally? Becoming more aware of that. So this can be a great tool to really just look at your feed, look at your FYP and see how things are impacting you and maybe who you want to unfollow, who you want to mute, and you can make decisions about how you might want to change what you're doing on social media. Here are some ideas: boundaries and social media. I know that social media also does help us stay connected, and it can be a place to feel connected with other people in recovery or qualified mental health providers. Qualified dietitians are on social media as well. It can be a good place in that regard. But sometimes we do want to create some boundaries around it and change what we're doing. Here are some ideas for you that I've collected over the years, and you might want to think about trying some of these. One of the more interesting suggestions I've heard, I think I heard it last year, was if you're not ready to change anything about the account you currently have, try creating an entirely new second account where you experiment with following all pro-recovery, diverse creators, positive type content, and just see and notice how you feel when compared to when you're on your original account, and then take a look at how you feel when you're on your new account. So that's just an idea that you can test out, but also if you want to like take a screenshot of this or anything, these are ideas that you can try as well. The goal, I think the key is to create very small doable goals where you're connecting also outside of social media, because when we're relying a lot on social media, we can forget really to connect in real life. So, and of course, following diverse creators, following people who look like you, who have bodies that look like you is very important. Unfollowing accounts that are perpetuating harmful messages and ideals. Okay, the emotions that you feel, right? If you're on social media or engaging with media in any capacity and you are feeling shame, guilt, anger, anxiety, you can harness those emotions and do something with them. So when we feel something, we want to do something. So instead of buying that product, think about another way that you can use that emotion to fuel you to do something. Maybe it's contacting advertisers when they're getting it right. Maybe they are doing a great job at really showing diverse people on their accounts, and they're really doing a great job with their marketing campaign. Maybe you just want to give them a shout out and let them know that they're doing good work. Or you can also contact companies and advertisers to protest based on the content if you feel that it's harmful to you or could be harmful to other people, especially those in recovery. Boycotting and boycotting products, meaning that being really mindful about where you're spending your money and where you're not spending your money, especially when companies are really rooted in fat phobia, diet culture, fitness culture, healthism, all of these systemic issues that really are at the root of body image and eating disorder issues. And of course, the Better Business Bureau, State Department of Consumer Protection, you can contact these organizations as well if you do feel like a company is doing harm to the public in some way. Okay, moving on. So let's talk about internalization. Who have you internalized? And many times our thoughts feel very true. Many times we latch onto thoughts and we run with them, and our thoughts sort of contribute to our urges and our behaviors, and it's all connected. And so it is very important. Mindfulness is a very important component of not only mental health, but also in body image work and eating disorder recovery. Being able to notice your thoughts and figuring out if your thoughts are actually better labeled as someone else's voice. And so our core beliefs, yes, they come from our timeline, but also they come from the memories of events and the people that we've internalized, especially attachment figures, can really live up here in our heads. And so many of us have this inner critic that's yelling at us, telling us what's wrong with us, what we need to fix, what we need to do. And when we really take a moment and listen closely, we can ask ourselves, who does that sound like? Maybe it's a relative, maybe it's someone, a bully, someone who really hurt you in the past. And if we can label it as that and externalize it and recognize that that is not our voice, that is not who we are. It's kind of like the eating disorder voice. It's like when we can label and start separating it, that is part of the work. And it's a huge part of the work to be able to say, I'm having this thought right now. This is not who I am. This comes from someone else suffers with these beliefs and these thoughts, and I have internalized them in my head. So we all are not immune either to internalizing weight stigma, anti-fat biases, diet culture, fitness culture, healthism. There is no escaping it when you exist in this society that we've probably internalized many of those messages as well. So the question is, can we identify when those thoughts are popping up and label them as that's not me, that's something I was taught, and that's something I learned, and it's something I can unlearn with some work. So weight stigma is very harmful to us and to our body image. I just wanted to share some research with you. And weight stigma exists outside of us. You know, we can encounter weight stigma in eating disorder treatment. We can encounter it at the doctor's office, but also weight stigma can live up here, and we can internalize weight stigma. And so weight stigma poses a significant threat to our physical and our mental well-being, and it is a significant risk factor in body dissatisfaction. So what can we do? How do we know if we've internalized weight stigma and anti-fat biases? Well, I wanted to give you this resource. It's the Harvard's free implicit association test. It's anonymous, doesn't cost any money. And you can take a look and see if maybe you've internalized some of these messages and start to unpack them, take them to therapy, and start to unlearn some of the things that you've learned along the way. None of us are immune to these messages. We've been bombarded with them our entire lives. Okay, so let's talk about thoughts, observing your thoughts non-judgmentally. Part of the work in eating disorder treatment, and part of the work certainly that I do, is cognitive work. And observing your thoughts is just one small piece of it, but it can be a very powerful piece. Being able to observe the thoughts that you have, label them for what they are. Okay, that's my eating disorder voice. That's the bully from middle school that I've internalized. That's my caregiver or my parent in my head living up here. So the first step really is to be able to observe thoughts and acknowledge that thoughts are not automatically true, even if they feel true. Not every thought. Of course, some of our thoughts may be true, but it is important to be able to recognize that not all of our thoughts are true. We can first create awareness when we have judgmental thoughts about ourselves. And when you have a judgmental thought about your own body or the bodies of others, to just simply notice those thoughts, notice when they pop up, notice how frequently they pop up, try to notice what triggered it on, and gently bring yourself back to the present moment and get reconnected with your body, with your senses in the present moment. And that can be really powerful. Body image work is about becoming attuned and reconnected with the body, as I talked about earlier, those domains, the physical domain, becoming connected with your body. Whenever you notice thoughts spiraling, going back and getting grounded in your body and practicing that over and over again. What do you feel in your body? Where do you feel it? What does it feel like? And to try to describe it in neutral terms. Okay, let's think about some of the thoughts you have about appearance. Some journal prompts, just some things to think about. If I looked a certain way, my life would be blank. What kind of beliefs have you developed about appearance? If I looked a certain way, I would have this. My most important quality is this. It's really never about the body. We can always go deeper. What is it that you're really wanting? You know, if you're saying to yourself, I want my body to look differently, well, what are you hoping that will bring you? And most of the time when we really dig in, we want acceptance, we want love, we want respect, we want the things that every single human being wants. We want validation. And so if we can get in touch with those deep needs that we all have as humans, we can find another way to meet those needs. And we all need to feel accepted, validated, connected in order to feel good about our body. So I think sometimes we get it backwards. It's like, if I fix my body, then I will get these needs met. But maybe it's the other way around. And I would argue that it is. If we get those needs met, if we find a way to feel accepted and validated, and we can exist in our bodies in a way that feels safe, our body image is going to change. The way we feel existing in our bodies is going to change. So let's get to the root of things. And there are ways to do this. Our body image thoughts are usually rooted in very deep core beliefs. And I'm going to teach you how you can get to those core beliefs. But our thoughts are very much impacted by our environment as well. And so I think it is important to think about, you have these thoughts, you have these beliefs, and what are you doing? What are you consuming? What messages are you taking in about your body that might be proving these beliefs to be true? And so it's very important to remember that when we have a core belief, no matter what it is, something that feels true to us, we will gravitate to any information out there that proves that belief to be true. And we need to be aware of that. So what shows are you watching? What accounts are you following? What things are you consuming that might be reinforcing these beliefs that you're trying to unlearn? The work sometimes is about purposefully seeking out things that challenge our beliefs, things that maybe chip away at some of the beliefs that we have, keeping an open mind about, maybe I can exist in my body, maybe I can not change it at all and still get the things that I want and need. So with the UT and eating disorder treatment at Renfrew, what we do is something called the downward arrow. And this can be a way where you can really get to the root of it. Because an automatic thought is really like, the way I like to think about it is, our core beliefs is like the well of water. And every time we have an automatic thought, it's like bringing a bucket up from that well. And so our thoughts are actually coming from our core beliefs. But if we don't know what our core beliefs are, how will we know what thoughts are actually influenced by them? So awareness and mindfulness, part of it is learning and identifying what your core beliefs are, so they're not impacting every single thought that you have. Or when you have a thought, you can say, okay, I know exactly where that's coming from. That's coming from my core belief. So if you have a body image thought, try taking it down the downward arrow to get to the root. You ask yourself, if this were true, what would it mean about me? And why does this matter to me? What would happen next in my life if this were true? And then you write something down, and then you keep taking it down the arrow until you get to something that feels like the truth to you. And that can create some awareness. This exercise is not designed for you to feel better. It's not That's not really the purpose of it. The purpose is becoming aware of the core beliefs that are impacting every thought you have, every interpretation you have about every situation. So cognitive work is also about learning how to think more flexibly. So there's beliefs we've latched onto based on our experience, based on our society, based on our culture. And thinking flexibly is really about acknowledging that not every thought is true, even when it feels true. You can ask yourself, what's another possibility? And see where that takes you. What evidence do I have for this? And see where that takes you. Of course, I want to also say for any marginalized folks, there are going to be some thoughts that are absolutely true and should be validated. Like, yes, it felt horribly that I went to the doctor's office and my condition was blamed on my weight. That needs to be validated. That's a thought that really needs to be heard and validated in general. So I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about are thoughts that are really rooted in diet culture, in internalized weight stigma, in healthism and fitness culture. What are these thoughts that we keep having over and over again about our bodies? And how can we start to practice thinking more flexibly? What would I say to a friend who had this thought? That can sort of help us get out of our head and think about it differently. What would my recovery voice say in that moment? So activating those parts of the brain that are usually not activated in those moments. Okay, so there's something called the cognitive dissonance program, and this is part of the work in sort of like body image workshops, the way that some of these workshops try to target thinking and how to think differently and essentially feel differently about your body. So I wanted to share some of these with you. It's adapted from the cognitive dissonance program, and I put the resource down there for you to see. But for any of you that are in school, whether you're in high school, college, whatever, sometimes a professor or a teacher will give you the opportunity to write an essay on a topic of your choice. And I want to invite you to volunteer to write an essay critiquing the thin ideal, critiquing corporations who profit from the thin ideal. Take those opportunities in school, or maybe if you want to work with your therapist or your dietitian to write an essay and then come back the next session and read the essay to them. These are ways that can actually help you with your body image, and it's based in research. It's going to take a little effort because we don't learn these things about our body overnight. And so it is going to take a little effort. It might feel a little uncomfortable doing this work. And that's okay. Body image work is complex, and it's something we do have to work at. So I wanted to give you these ideas, and you can decide what fits for you. Write a letter to an imaginary child who is worried about their weight or size. Teach them in that letter how to avoid body image issues in the future. This can be really powerful too. Making a list of all the functional, behavioral, emotional, all those qualities and traits that you actually like about yourself. That could be uncomfortable too. This is part of the work though, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Here's a journal prompt for you. Remember a time when you were pressured in any way to change your body. Now imagine talking back to that person who pressured you. What would you say? And write it all out. Or you can role play with your therapist. And then also making lists. List all the subtle ways the thin ideal stays alive. Can you spot those ways? Can you identify them? And what can you do? What can we all do instead to fight against it? Listening to your body, as we talked about in the physical domain, connection to your body is part of body image work. Eating disorders or disorders of disconnection, you're disconnected to self, others, and food. Listening to your body is part of the work when you're building a better relationship with it. You think about this. Think about a healthy relationship with a friend, with a partner. Think about the things that make a relationship healthy. You listen to the person. You validate them. If they have needs, you try to respect and honor their needs. You respect their boundaries. Imagine if you didn't do any of those things in a healthy relationship. What would happen to the relationship? Would it be good? Or it would be not so good? Your relationship with your body operates under the same exact set of strategies, if that makes sense. So if we want a better relationship with our body, we have to actually treat our body like any other healthy relationship in our life, which means being attuned to it, checking in. What am I feeling right now? What am I needing right now? How can I take care of myself in this moment? Is there any possible way I can take care of myself in this moment? Do I want something? Do I desire something? Am I hungry? Do I have a craving? What am I needing? Am I in pain? Am I, do I need to change something I'm doing to get myself out of pain? Am I craving touch or connection? You can add on to this list, by the way, but listening to your body and treating your body like any other healthy relationship in your life is going to be what shifts things for you. And I know it might sound corny. I know some of you might be thinking, oh, I know, I got to treat my body like a friend. Yes, you have to treat your body like a friend, like a literal friend. And so this is the hard part. Figuring out, how would I treat a friend in a healthy relationship, and then do that exact same thing for your body. Values work is very important in body image work as well. And so getting in touch with, what are your values? How do you measure your worth? I just want to put it out there. It is okay if you value appearance. I think we all do on some level. Of course we do. We live in this culture, right? And so it's okay if that's one of your values, but what are your other values, and how much space does appearance take up on the pie chart of your life and your values and your identity? And so is there a way to make room for other values? And by the way, you can Google, literally go on Google, list of values. It will give you all kinds of free lists of different types of values. Go circle 5 of them. Read through them all. What stands out to you as most meaningful and most important? Because values work is part of body image work. We must know what we value so that we can start making choices in our life to align with those values and get more connected with them. So a therapist can help you with this as well. Identifying values is part of body image work. I talked a lot about relationships, of course, because we heal in connection. But I want to remind you, I know sometimes we trick ourselves into thinking, if I just change my body, I'm going to get X, Y, and Z. And many times what we want is usually associated with something in a relationship. You want love, you want respect, you want something like that. And sometimes there's this belief that you'll never be able to have the relationship you want or the things you want unless you look a certain way. But I want you to just close your eyes for a minute and think about your very best friend or someone you love. It could be an animal, it could be really anything, any kind of relationship. And really, when you think about this person or this animal or whoever it may be, really allow yourself to feel those feelings when you think about them. Where do you feel it in your body when you think about them? Maybe you feel it in your heart or your chest, or maybe you feel warm. What are the thoughts that you have when you think about this person? What do you love about them? If you could come up with 3 words to describe what you love about them, what would those words be? And what urges are you having? Maybe you have the urge to call them or hug them or connect with them in some way, or an urge to tell them something. So now that you've done that, I'm wondering how many of you out there found yourself focusing on your loved one's appearance? How many thoughts came up for you, like the reason you love them is because how they look or what size they are? Probably, I would be willing to bet, none of you, because this is not what connects us to each other. We are not connected by appearance. We're connected by things that are so much deeper. And you know this because when you think about the people who you love or have loved in your life, you know that it goes so much deeper. The reasons you love them. And the same is true for you too. The reasons people love you have nothing to do with your appearance. True love, I should add. Let's talk about avoidance before I end this webinar. Avoidance is very tricky because avoidance tricks us into thinking that it's keeping us safe, that it's protecting us from anxiety and shame and fear. But avoidance is the very thing that can keep our anxiety and our fear alive. And this is true for body image as well. So there are different types of avoidance. There's behavioral avoidance, there's cognitive avoidance, or even safety signals, things you carry with you to make you feel more comfortable. Body image work is really about, some of it, again, it's very complex, but part of it is about trying to identify maybe the ways that you're avoiding and the ways in which you're willing to lean into that anxiety. So think about this. Think about the ways that you maybe avoid when it comes to body image. Maybe there's certain clothes you never ever wear. Maybe you avoid pictures or full-length mirrors. Maybe you, when you're at the beach or at the pool, you refuse to wear a swimsuit, or you only wear a certain type of swimsuit. Think about, and there's infinite ways that avoidance can pop up when it comes to body image. And so the work is to be able to gradually identify ways that you're willing to lean in to this anxiety and fear. And it could be as simple as looking in a full-length mirror for 5 minutes and just allowing yourself to feel whatever it is you're feeling. Getting in that picture over the holidays, even though you normally say, no, I don't want a picture of myself. And taking that risk and saying, no, I'm actually going to get in this picture because I want to remember this moment. And I want to remember how it feels to be in this moment with these people. Again, there are infinite amount of ideas, and your therapist can help you with this. But I think the trick is to come up with goals that feel doable, that are uncomfortable, but not so frightening that it feels impossible. I mean, some fears are like 10 out of 10. Can you aim for something that's maybe more like a 6 out of 10, a 5 out of 10? This is essentially what we call exposure work in the therapy world. But there are ways that we can take small risks in our life to try to lean into anxiety and fear and ultimately build that tolerance and conquer it so it's not in control of us anymore. Avoidance feels so good in the short term, and it gives us such relief, and it makes us think we're safe, but in the long term, it actually keeps us stuck and can actually make fear and anxiety a lot worse. So let's remember that anytime we're stepping out of our comfort zone and we're facing fears and feeling our feelings, this is when we're making progress and we're making change and we're building up that tolerance. So I want to thank all of you for hanging with me today. Hi, Hannah. And I'm so glad because we do have a couple minutes for questions.
Wonderful, Sam. This has been fantastic. And as you said, we do have some time for Q&A. So folks, you are welcome to continue submitting questions into the toolbar. And a few attendees asked about Dr. Neva Perron's book. They didn't catch the name of it. And I'm wondering if you could share that with us one more time.
Yes. Okay. Journeys of Embodiment and the Intersection of Body and Culture by Neva Perron.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sam. Another question, thinking about the holiday season coming up and how that may impact body image, I'm curious if you could share any tips that you have on how to handle any comments or conversations around weight that might be coming up in the next weeks.
Oh, yes. So, so this can be very challenging. I want to encourage all of you to have a plan going into it. It's, to think about, well, first of all, is there someone at a holiday event that can be your support person? Someone that you can give a signal to that can, rescue you from inappropriate or triggering conversation. So having that emotional support partner at an event can be incredibly helpful. But also to maybe practice ahead of time some ways you might set boundaries around weight talk or diet talk in the moment. And really just to practice saying it out loud, whether it's with your therapist or in the mirror or role playing with a friend, but to be able to say things, like, I don't want you to talk about my body. I don't appreciate when people comment on my weight, or it makes it harder for me to feel good about myself when you talk about my body this way. Or you might just walk away from the conversation, or you might change the subject. So there are many different ways that you can handle it. I think the question is, what would feel most comfortable to you, whether it's setting a very direct boundary, which is not always safe in certain family systems. And it might not always feel safe based on your culture and the values within your culture. I mean, sometimes if it's an elder person, it's really not realistic to feel safe and set a very direct boundary with that person. So go in with a plan of what feels comfortable to you, how you might handle that situation, and just remember that you do have permission to say no to events. You know, think about the events that maybe are not going to be good for your recovery, or you don't feel safe, and think about what are the events I can maybe say no to, and how can I create an experience over the holidays that actually meets my needs, and is I can be attuned with myself and what I need and what I want from this holiday season, and to really get clear about what your needs are. But I just want to give a shout out also to Dr. Paula Friedman, who we had on an episode. It's a future episode coming out. Dr. Paula Friedman is a therapist in Chicago, and she does amazing work around what to say when someone has a body image comment or a diet talk sort of comment. And she has great examples of ways you can respond. She's on TikTok, and she's also going to be on an episode on our podcast, so stay tuned for that.
Thank you so much, Sam. I tried to provide a link in the chat for folks if they want to check out her page. That's another great resource.
Oh, good.
Yes, unfortunately, our time is wrapping up. We did have an attendee that had asked, really appreciate the content of this webinar, and had asked if this might be something that could be discussed with a therapist at Renfrew. And I just want to say, absolutely, these topics come up in treatment consistently. The body image exposure work that Sam talked about as well is absolutely a big part of our treatment at Renfrew. And so with that, we're at the top of the hour. And so I want to say we are concluding the presentation. Once again, thank you, Sam, so much for sharing your expertise with us this afternoon. On behalf of myself, Sam, and the Renfrew Center Foundation, we just thank you all so much for participating and are wishing you all a wonderful day and week. Take care, everyone. Bye.